I'm going to unpack this blog post I wrote recently about 5 ways to host online church services. I thought this would be fun to kind of do it a little different. I normally don't talk about this, but talk about my blog post this way, but I have a lot to say. And this is a post I've been wanting to write for a while, mainly because we have done a lot over the years with hosting our services online. I've been an online pastor full-time since 2013, been doing it in some capacity since 2009, and I've seen the waves of the way churches do this, and I have a lot of opinions and thoughts, and we've tried it all from live hosting to pre-recorded to now a custom service online, and I can kind of unpack all of it. Now, this kind of idea kind of first rides upon this idea that I don't think every church should do this. I talked about this last week in another post about, recommending different technology options for church sizes. And I kind of say that I don't think a church shouldn't do this till, they're well above 1,500 people locally. And, I think you can do it before, but I just don't think that there's a lot of reasons to it. And so kind of taking that aside, I think a lot of people want to know, but Jay, how do you think about this? Regardless of your church size, you might just be interested. So I unpacked 5 ideas. I included this kind of fun moment from 2011 where I was hosting. You can kind of see this, like, this is funny. I'm wearing sandals. Look at this. Man, this is crazy. We used to pre-record these on Saturday night. And then the idea is that we would show it on the stream Sunday morning. So every Saturday night, because we had Saturday services, we would record it. It would only show before the service started live on the stream. And so these are just hilarious. I just love that I'm wearing rainbow sandals. It's so SoCal of me. Okay, so so I've been doing this a while. I actually even linked this option of a pitch I put together for our leadership. And I kind of included some moments over the years. And I put together this deck because I was trying to make a pitch for us to evolve our streaming services. And I provide a bunch of data and reasons why. You can see I even reference Church Home in here. So this is kind of a fun thing. Shout out to Southeast Life Church. I mean, they're always an inspiration, stuff they do. And so this is kind of fun. I include that in there, which is fun to kind of see. So 5 ways to host service. I'm going to walk through this. I have you probably can't hear, but I have my cold brew coffee. And I'll just unpack it. I thought this would be fun. So number 1, the first way is to talk to people online in the room simultaneously. The idea here is you don't need to change much. It just kind of works. And you don't need to do a pre-post show. You don't need to have any special setup. You just train the preacher, you train the host just to kind of recognize those online. I think Central does this really well. I don't know their full setup, but they do something like this where essentially the people come out and they're talking to the room and they're talking to those online. And I think this is a pretty cool, you can see like it's done high quality. Central is like another OG in streaming. They've been doing stuff online for a long time. But, the pros here is easy to do. You can be strategic too, how you talk about moments. I talk about this idea when you start talking to those online, the idea is that you're recognizing that it is a large audience. There's people watching online. Probably half to the full size of people in the room are at least watching online over the course of the first 7 days. And so hey, we just want to engage those people. We know people are coming to church less. And so they're still watching online in some capacity. We can keep them engaged. So for example, I reference this at our church. One of the things we've done strategically when we're talking to those online will be hey, this series, actually, I'll change out another example. We launched this Heyo Bible, this really cool Bible with Zondervan. I'll bring up an example of it. Zondervan. That's not how you spell Zondervan. But what's cool about this is that it's this really cool Bible. And what we did was we gave everybody who attended one weekend a copy of this Bible. And so because we designed it with Zondervan, kind of comes out of our church. And what we did online is they said, hey, everybody who comes to church the weekend of December 1st gets a Heyo Bible. And if you're watching online, we're going to give away 5 Bibles. But if you and your family want one of these Bibles, come to church in person. And that's the strength is you're able to talk to those online and engage them to come in person in strategic moments. And so the con is it can be hard to balance talking to those online in the room. You got to make sure the room feels really engaged. I kind of recommend 80% talking to the room, 20% online. You can even weigh that even more, but you don't want the room to feel like they're on a TV show. And so that's something you got to figure out. But I think most churches, if you're doing anything, just do that. Even the preacher can do this in their preaching. You go, hey, take next steps, fill out the card in front of you. For everybody else, you can go to the digital program / program whatever to take next steps. The next stage is you can pre-record moments, and this is where you actually record them during the week, your intro and outro, and you just play them a couple minutes before your actual physical in-room service starts. And you can, obviously the pros here is you can control the quality. You can maybe color correct the footage. You can make sure the audio is all balanced, because when you go live, like if somebody's live in the room and you cut to them and you're switching between, stuff can go wrong and the shot can be framed wrong. I remember one time when we were doing this, the shot was a little shaky. And so you can't fix that. It's just there. And then you need, you don't really need another volunteer team too when you're doing pre-recording, because you just use that same team during the week, where on Sunday, if they're doing recording and camera work on the stage, it's hard for them to jump around to different spots. There's things you can do to optimize it, like you can put your hosting on the stage. I know some churches do that so that the same people that are maybe doing the worship capture angle, like the third camera, you can have them also record the host, and when they're done, they just turn around. There's a lot of ways to do it, but the cons are that sometimes this can not feel super dynamic because it can be scripted. It can feel disconnected from the room because you might be recording in an empty room and then all of a sudden there's no energy, too scripted. Sometimes stuff changes. Like my pastor does this every once in a while, like twice a year, where the sermon just completely changes and you find out. And now that pre-recorded moment is totally disconnected and you may not be able to use it. And sometimes this is why pre-recorded moments tend to be very general. I know we did this one time where we had our lead pastor record a pre-recorded moment at the front of the service, and we used it for like 3 months. And it wasn't great. There's reasons why we were doing that, but essentially, sometimes pre-recorded moments can get really stale if you're not strategic. The churches that do it well, I think they are more programmed, meaning they know what they're talking about no matter what. They're more planned out. I remember I read one of the first communication church books I ever read was less clutter, more noise, less clutter by Kim Meyer. I'm forgetting Kim's title of her book, but I remember I read that, and she had this thing in the back of her book of planning out the next 12 months of your church services. And I remember I laughed because my church doesn't think that way at the time. Pastor Rick didn't think that way. I actually told her, I had a lunch with her one time, and I was like, that thing was totally disconnected. And she actually said, I think she relaunched the book like 5 years ago. She said she actually removed that because that was something that was not as helpful as she thought it was. But you have to be super programmed. I bring some examples here of, this is a pre-recorded moment where we recorded during the week, like on a Thursday, Friday, and then we show it. The cool thing about pre-record is you can use different people. You can schedule it out. This is Venture Church, who Blake and them do a lot of cool stuff. They actually don't archive their full service, but you can see, look, this is a different one, but you can see this is pre-recorded and they show it. They do it really well. I actually really like what they do. And then Crossway, Foggy, if you haven't checked out Foggy's Steve Foggy. Actually, I gotta make sure I got that right. Steve Fogg. Yeah, I call him Foggy, but he has a ton of great resources. But they pre-record, and you can see high quality. You can do some stuff in it. Again, the only drawback is you have to be super dialed in. My church, that really worked because we just didn't know what we were talking about, but it can work if you do it well. The third option is simple live hosted experience from the room, meaning you live host your worship services a few minutes before and after. So if the service starts at 9, you start a stream you can start it at 8:57, or you can do 8:55, depending how long. Some churches do it. We would do 3 minutes. Some churches do 5. I know some churches do 10. It kind of all depends. Pros, it's live energy, a lot of kinetic energy. It kind of feels like a party's happening, especially if you put it somewhere where people in the back are moving around. Churches sometimes do it in the lobby or in their patio. And it can be programmed lightly, but it's very casual, dynamic. It's more talking points back and forth. Again, you don't. It could also be a great way to develop people on staff that you want, or volunteers you want to go on stage. This can be a great dry run through where people are seeing it, but not a ton. But it's a really great way for people to get reps on stage or in front of people. Also, you can change things. If right before the service changed or something's happening, you can talk about it. You can literally real time. I remember one time we were hosting and something changed in the service, and literally somebody gave me a card and we could talk. Hey, by the way, we're doing this in the service. Be ready to follow along this way, And so those are things you do. The con is it could take technical skill to do a live experience, even a simple one. Before, you have to have switchers, you have to have all sorts of stuff. People had to know what they're doing. You need production teams to be able to pull this off every week. And then usually you need a separate space. You need your room experience, and then you need somewhere where if it's in the same room, it might be in the corner. Somebody needs to be monitoring, because what happens is when you're live, when you're doing separate audio online versus the room, and you're cutting around, stuff can be mixed wrong. It could go wrong. I remember one time when we started, it was right after COVID, we started doing, during COVID, we did pre-recorded custom services, and when we started meeting back in the room, we were live hosting, and we hadn't done that in a while. And essentially, I remember we would go live a couple minutes before the service just for those online. We did that 4 times every weekend. And I remember I found out that our live hosting was being routed into our bathrooms. So people were hearing our audio, and they shouldn't. That should have only gone online. But just because of routing and so forth, just stuff happens. And so you need somebody, a volunteer, somebody monitoring everything. And so that's what happens. This is a version of Saddleback doing it. This is from the stage, obviously. One of my worst fears when we would do this, I don't think this is one of them. I would be afraid somebody from the worship band would walk up behind me, because if you see at the end, they actually do walk up at the end. Oh, maybe you can't. Sometimes they would walk behind me, and I would be afraid a worship dude would say hi, and I would live on camera forget their name because of just everything. And then we did the same thing at the end. You can see, but it's cool because it's energy. We always struggled because it would be Saturday night, and depending on the time of year, it would get dark. And so if you're watching on Sunday morning, it could feel a little disconnected. I don't think you want to watch worship services that are very dark generally. Crossroads, anywhere in Ohio, this is super high quality. You can see that the moving camera, really decked out. They're top of the level of what they do. You can see there's energy stuff happening. I think this is live, but the more I look at it, the more I think it's pre-recorded, but I'm actually not 100% sure. I did not ask them, but I really like this setup. It feels live. It's well done. And then Crossroads is another Crossroads in Corona near me. Zach and their team is awesome, and you can see this. This is a really cool setup, and I think Crossroads is very good. Actually, production wise, they're a big church, but they're not ginormous. But they do this really well. One of the things you got to see is you see how they're in a studio and you got a background. It can feel very stale if there's not movement in a shot like this. And so that's something you got to wrestle through. I'll show you an example at the end, even Saddleback stuff we do, that I'm always you have to change up your shots. I like this because they have a screen back here turned horizontal, and they are, they're able to do different things like important events. But they're a local church that's online, and they really use it to engage people. They see it as a value, but you can see great energy. One of the tell signs of stuff like this is watch these without audio on, and you get a lot. You get a lot of feel of it. And I would say to anybody that's hosting online, doing camera work, watch yourself religiously. It's not the most fun thing to do, but you learn a lot about yourself. You learn your tics, your habits. Next is more of a robust hosted experience online. This is where you kind of take the simple experience and you really program it. You do something custom. This is where you get to really talk about things, interview people, talk about events in a way that's really more than just, hey, we're here, it's a party, come hang out. It's more no, we want to do discipleship classes online. We have online groups a lot more. You highlight stuff. I mean, this is kind of moves to you really have a shepherd of this thing, and you want to provide more space and time for the online team, whatever you call them, to build a community. It kind of moves beyond just a TV broadcast. The con is this, again, a lot of technical skill, just like option 3. You got to figure out like how to invest in this. Churches that do this well, Church on the Rock is a big church in the Missouri area. David there is a really cool online pastor. You can see like they go from the lobby. They do a lot of cool stuff. Sorry, I needed another drink of my coffee there. But you can see like I like this because people are coming in and out, and this makes you want to go there. These types of shots are high energy. As it gets closer to the service, they'll cut in. I think they program stuff out. They interview people. They cut to people. Southeastern, I think, honestly, is top tier at this. Steven and their team, this is Steven over here to the left, they cut to different campuses. They're always keeping this fresh. I love it because they're highlighting other campuses, and they do an amazing job. The ticker, I joked with them, it's like, it feels like ESPN, like the quality. And, they've been doing it a long time. They're a very big church, one of the biggest churches in the country. But you can see how they kind of highlight their values of wanting to nurture and connect with people online, but also get people to show up in person. And by highlighting and cutting to different campuses, different shots, I think they really do this well. And I think it's no surprise why they're so good at what they do. I think for sure, no doubt, Elevation Church, Chad, Zolo, and their team is, they're world class. I don't even got to say much more of that, but they do all sorts of stuff online. They switch up shots. They have a whole, you can see they're cutting around to different places. They really, look at this. They move like, they're always doing cool stuff. You can see they have special programming in the front and the back end. If you go to the end, this is Chad. Yeah, Chad is awesome dude. I like the way he even like, and I don't know Chad that well, but I get to feel like he always wants to host the pastoral moments at the end. He doesn't want to be on the front. That's my vibe from him. But it's good. Like he leverages his presence in a very strategic way. But look at this. Like they have all this stuff. They're promoting all their events. Again, this is highly programmed. They're very good. He's been doing this almost as long as me. Like Chad is the man. And so what they do, always check them out. And then lastly, I would say a full custom worship service for online. And this is where you actually cut something. You're not really connected to the local experience. You're doing something fully custom in some approach. And you do this because maybe you want to eliminate all local language from the stream. You want to create something just for YouTube. And maybe even you want to start house churches from this, and you invest in this approach because, people are giving and there's money there and it aligns with your strategy. You don't have to do this. Like, I think there are churches like Elevation Eastern Church, and then also Church on the Rock, those churches, like they could do these, they could do option 5, but I don't think they need to. I don't think their goal is to do this. I think number 4 option really works for what they do. And because they want to invest in online, but also get people to show up physically, they got to figure out that balance. 5 is because maybe you want to do something else. This is more of a strategy question. These are not 1 to 5 or, one's the worst, 5's the best. You got to fit what makes sense. I think what Central does with 1 is a perfect strategy for how they think about this. And I think it works for them clearly. Some of the cons is it's disconnecting from a live experience. Disconnecting a live stream to something fully custom is hard. When we made this change about a year ago, we had people upset. And if people really want the live, they want the live. It's like that Bill O'Reilly. We want it live, go live. Like I had people very visibly upset because we made this change. And part of it was we wanted more people to go to our physical experience in the room, and we wanted to build something more for those online, and we wanted to disconnect. And I told leadership, like, this is going to be a hard disconnect. Also you have to figure out how you have different processes. So like in this case, like we still live stream our main worship service, but it's put somewhere else. And the thing that goes on YouTube, Facebook, and our mainstream page is just our custom service. And so like now we have to have double the team to be able to pull off the 4 live streams. We're not hosting those anymore like we used to. We just create some, and then we need an editor to shoot somebody to shoot stuff on Saturday nights. And yeah, and so YouTube for Saddleback, the first example is, this is something, we have a studio space where we kind of change out the graphic in the back. We actually rotate a couple different places, but you can see like this is something we record every Saturday night. What happens is We watch the first service on Saturday night at 4. We go into a studio around 5:30. We record everything. We give the talking points. We have a like and I'll try to bring it up here. We have a work plan. And so, for example, like if I look at this weekend, we have this. Here's going to be the description. And so I look at our planning center doc for our main worship service and I go, okay, we're going to do the first song. Here's the welcome. Here's some stuff, the message, music, close. We typically cut out 2 songs from the main worship service. We only show 2 songs every week. We try to make it a little shorter. This is obviously a QR code up the whole time. And then we transition to things. And so this is like in this example, we had a video that week where Megan, one of our pastors, talked about Activate. And then when it came back to me, I said, hey, by the way, as Megan was talking about Activate, we have this on Zoom. And I said, I would love to hang out with you. And like this graphic, we just created this in Canva real quick. And then typically, go to the message. And then at the end, same thing, I'll close. And so it's very, very simple. The luxury here is that we have Saturday night services, so we can make something, we can shoot something, edit something every Saturday night by 10:30 at night, and it's available Sunday morning. And we've really invested into this on YouTube. And so I even show an example here of how we had communion. And if you were watching that weekend, our Lake Forest pastor, Pastor Katie, hosted communion. Well, that weekend, instead of Katie doing it for the room, I did it just for online. And so I walk through communion in this moment. And I explain, hey, by the way, you can pause, you can go get items. So this allows me to contextualize everything. And so, so again, we contextualize something every week. I put a link here. You can actually see all the different versions of this over the years. And so you can see we change it up every week. Sometimes like in this service, like we played a song first and then it went into in this case, this was we had a big party called Block Party and we recorded it out there with a lot of activity. So we change up the rooms and stuff in the spaces. But this allows us to really invest in creating something special for online. And we can do it every Saturday night. My team, I program everything out. I, schedule the hosts and everything, and I kind of decide what's going to happen. And then we have a part-time video editor, recorder, Tim on our team, that he reports to our production team, but we kind of have his hours every Saturday night from like 3 to 10. And so, so I don't even have a full-time person. It's just, that's how it works. Life Church, obviously, they do a bit of a mix. They record centrally their message for all their 45 plus campuses, and they kind of do a similar thing, but it's just a little different based off of it. One of the things I love what they do is they have like these moving shots. You see how they move in? Like I saw this space once and they just do this really cool, but kind of the same thing. Like it goes to the end and then same intro, outro. They record it similar to us. I think they record it during the week because they're a little bit more programmed in, but it's the same concept. This is something, and they call it a live experience. If you go to their YouTube channel, I think it's called, live experience. We call it the online community experience, online community worship service, but Life Church, very good at what they do. And obviously Mariners, this is something that's been newer the last couple years. Justin, their online pastor and their team, they record host moments during the week, but they also record Eric Geiger, their message actually is recorded just for online. So he actually preaches his message just for online. I don't know the full workflow. I think, to my knowledge, he might record this like on a Thursday before the weekend. So it's like a dry run through and then it's a little shorter and then he goes into the weekend. But this is a lot of work on Eric and their team to do this. But obviously it's working and it's a good investment. This is something I know a couple other churches do this. Like I know Life Church records during the week and they use that for all the campuses. Sandals Church does a similar thing. I've tried to pitch this to my pastor, like, hey, record on a Wednesday, Thursday, and then allow us to have the message in the can so that we can use it online. And then you can still preach live on the weekend. I think Life Church and Sandals does that. Like their lead pastors still record live on the weekend sometimes. And then, but that way, because what happens sometimes you record live on the weekend and you might go long. And then if you're at a campus, you don't have as much time. And so, this takes a lot of work, but I think they do it super well. Actually, Justin, too, is one of the first pastors that I know that are he actually lives out of state. He lives in the Phoenix area, and the church is in Southern California, and so they're experimenting a ton. And then lastly, Church Home. Church Home is, I mean, they're the OG in this. They record stuff. I couldn't link directly to something because they were always their weekly services are in the app, so you have to watch it live in the app, and they only archive the messages. They do stream, I think once a month. They do these pop-up services where you can kind of, it's like a pop-up in LA or wherever they're at, but kind of feels like a band, like you can get in the app and then they have these live experiences. But they do this well. I remember when they first started doing this, I wrote about this 6 years ago, and it was really cool. They renamed their church. They did all sorts of stuff. But again, these are the 5 options. I don't think one is better than the other. I think you just got to figure out which one best works for you. If you know a church doing something and you're like, Jay, please highlight this, let me know. I love all these. I think I nerd out on this a bit just because I've been doing it so long and I've seen churches change and evolve. Even my own church has changed and evolved. And so if you got something your church does, you've seen something, please tag it down below in the comment section. I would love to see it. I'm always learning and changing things up. Even this year, we were considering maybe we custom record our worship services every week for on demand, but I was thinking about maybe I just live host just for Christmas and Easter. We're not doing that this year, but maybe for Easter. I mean, I'm always experimenting with things. But anyways, hope that was helpful. If you got an idea that you want me to see, comment down below. And thanks for watching.